We'll begin now. This week will be the 75th anniversary of the United States detonating nuclear weapons over the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The first nuclear weapon was detonated above Hiroshima on August 6th, 1945, and the second over Nagasaki 3 days later on August 9th. Tonight, through readings, meditations, and prayer, we will pause and reflect on nuclear weapons, war, peace, and beloved community. We will hear the words of peace pilgrim Martin Luther King Jr. and former South African President F.W. de Klerk, who dismantled South Africa's nuclear weapons arsenal. We will reflect on the fact that currently only 9 countries in the world possess nuclear weapons, while 122 countries voted in the United Nations to ban nuclear weapons. May we reflect and contemplate on these matters out of love for ourselves and all life, and that we may be more loving, peaceful, kind, and skillful moving forward. To start, I want to take a minute to speak on the consequences to human and animal life caused by the bombs being dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If you do not want to hear this, I invite you to cover your ears for a minute, and I will wave you back in like this when I'm finished. But it could be definitely triggering, so do what you need to do to stay within your window of tolerance. The two bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed upwards of 226,000 people and many uncounted animals, domestic and wild. Of the people killed, most were civilians. All of these people and animals wanted to live in peace and safety. Half were killed immediately by the explosions, while most of the other half died slowly over the next 4 months from burns, radiation poisoning, and injuries, and the resulting illness and malnutrition caused by the massive devastation to the healthcare and food supply infrastructure. So, as far as the communities there, it was total annihilation. All right, those of you who are covering your ears, you can come back in. The United States remains the only country to have ever used nuclear weapons in combat. And today, the US retains the second largest nuclear arsenal in the world, second only to Russia. So we're gonna do a short meditation. So just get comfortable and silently name or label any emotions that arise due to the information I shared with you. There may be sadness or anger, apathy, guilt, shame, or any other emotion. Just gently notice whatever is coming up for you. And whatever emotions arose, know they arose due to impersonal conditioning. Their arising is lawful and they belong. So allow them to be as they are. Gently now reflect on any thoughts that arose in response to the information I shared with you. Whatever thoughts arose, know they arose due to impersonal conditioning. Their arising is lawful, they belong, and allow them to be as they are. Now let's take a mindful pause. If you so would like, you can put one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Placing our full awareness on the sensations of breath, we breathe in through our nose, deep into our belly for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue to rest your awareness on the sensations of breath. Do not engage with any other thoughts, feelings, or sensations. Compassionately keep all of your attention on the sensations of breath to allow the mind and body to be calm and settled. Experiencing, witnessing, or perpetuating violence creates trauma in bodies that can be passed down from generation to generation. These traumas make us fearful, defensive, and more likely to attack one another, causing us to perpetuate a never-ending cycle of violence. In an effort to break this cycle of violence, we offer loving kindness to the victims, survivors, perpetrators, and witnesses of the nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. May all who died, wherever they may be now, may you and your relations know unconditional peace, compassion, and love, and be healed of any remaining wounds. May all who survived and had to live with the carnage, death, and destruction, may you and your relations know unconditional peace, compassion, and love, and be healed of any remaining wounds. May all who participated in the bombing, either by helping design and build the bombs, by giving the order to drop the bombs, by carrying out the orders to bomb, by offering moral support and encouragement for the bombings, or if in any other way helped, supported, or abetted this action, may all who participated, may you and your relations know unconditional peace, compassion, and love, and be healed of any remaining wounds. May all who opposed the bombing, but witnessed it or learned about it, helpless to do anything to stop it or take it back, some knowing that this act of violence was done in their name, may all who witnessed it, may you and your relations know unconditional peace, compassion, and love, and be healed of any remaining wounds. Finally, may all people, all animals, and all life forms everywhere, excluding none, may you and your relations know unconditional peace, compassion, and love, and be healed of any remaining wounds. Next, we're going to do a reading from Peace Pilgrim's book. If you have your copy handy, feel free to turn to page 97 and read along. We're going to start at the top of the page. This is the way of peace. Overcome evil with good, falsehood with truth, and hatred with love. It is hard for people to understand that all war is bad and self-defeating. People in their immaturity attempt to overcome evil with more evil and that multiplies the evil. Only good can overcome evil. My simple peace message is adequate, really just the message that the way of peace is the way of love. Love is the greatest power on earth. It conquers all things. One in harmony with God's law of love has more strength than an army. For one need not subdue an adversary. An adversary can be transformed. One day, as I was walking along the highway, I began to sing peace words to a familiar tune which I believe sums up the present world situation in a nutshell. The world is feverishly working to build the things of war. The world is preparing destruction of a kind unknown before. I hear much cursing of enemies, and arguments increase. But oh, the world is longing, is yearning, is praying for peace, for peace. The nuclear bomb says to us, make peace or perish. We recognize that we can no longer think in terms of military victory, that a nuclear war would mean mutual annihilation. Many face this critical situation with apathy, some with frustration, but only a very few face it constructively. There is such a great need for constructive peace action. We live at a crisis period in human affairs, and those of us who are living today face a momentous decision, a choice between nuclear war of annihilation and a golden age of peace. All who are living today will help to make this choice, for the tide of world affairs now drifts in the direction of war and destruction. So all who do nothing in this crisis situation are choosing to let it drift. Those who wish to choose peace must act meaningfully for peace and become a part of the stirring and awakening which has begun and is accelerating, and help to accelerate it sufficiently to turn the tide. In this crisis situation, peace is certainly everybody's business. The time to work for peace is now. Ultimate peace begins within. When we find peace within, there will be no more conflict and no more occasion for war. If this is the peace you seek, purify your body by sensible living habits. Purify your mind by expelling all negative thoughts. Purify your motives by casting out any ideas of greed or self-striving, and by seeking to serve your fellow human beings. Purify your desires by eliminating all wishes for material possessions or self-glorification, and by desiring to know and do God's will for you. Inspire others to do likewise. Some will prefer to work on an interim peace, a setting up of mechanisms to resolve conflict in a world where conflicts still exist, so that although there may still be psychological violence, there will no longer be physical violence. If this is the peace you seek, work on a world scale for world disarmament and reconstruction, for a world government which will include all people, for world thinking, placing the welfare of the human family above the welfare of any nation. Work on a national scale for changing the function of the so-called Defense Department from destruction to construction. So much constructive work is needed among the less fortunate peoples in the world, and for the adjustment of our economy to a peacetime situation. Lots of problems to solve here. Get others to work with you. Peace Pilgrim invites us all into the role of peacemakers. Through self-purification and constructive service, we can all do our own part to create a world of peace. Let's take another mindful pause and reflection. Resting awareness on breath. Breathe in through the nose, deeply into the belly. And gently reflect on, in what way are you called to be a peacemaker? Where in your life can you bring more kindness, more compassion, more love, more healing? And more peace? Next, I'm going to share with you some excerpts from the Atlantic article called "Why One President Gave Up His Country's Nukes" by Uri Friedman. Only 4 countries in history have surrendered their nuclear weapons: Belarus, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and South Africa. Had Ukraine and Kazakhstan kept the arsenal on their territory, they would have become the world's 3rd and 4th largest nuclear powers, respectively. However, South Africa has dismantled nuclear weapons that it constructed and controlled. Next, I'm going to go over an interview with the Atlantic reporter Uri Feldman with the South African president F.W. de Klerk about his decommissioning his country's nuclear weapons. So during the interview, de Klerk explains, "I first became aware of the existence of this nuclear weapons program. The full cabinet in South Africa never knew about it when I became Minister of Minerals and Energy Affairs in the early 1980s. The bombs were in the making. I never felt comfortable with the program, but I couldn't stop it. By the end, when I became president, we had 6 completed nuclear weapons and the 7th was halfway done. They were Hiroshima-type weapons." And Friedman asked him, "Why did you have misgivings about the program?" De Klerk answered, "I felt that it's meaningless to use such a bomb in what was essentially a bush war, that it was unspeakable to think that we could destroy a city in one of our neighboring countries in any way whatsoever. From the beginning, in my personal opinion, I regarded it as a rope around our neck." "In what sense?" asked Friedman. And de Klerk responds, "In the sense that you have something which you never intend to use, really, which is unspeakable to use, which would be morally indefensible to use." And later in the interview, Friedman asks, "To those who say once countries get nuclear weapons, they're never going to give them up. We just have to live with a nuclear weapons armed North Korea. What would you say?" And de Klerk responds, "I would say the solution lies in those nuclear weapons powers who, even if they have nuclear weapons legitimately in terms of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, coming forth and showing their willingness in a reasoned way to diminish their stocks and to commit to an end goal of getting rid of it all. To lead by example. In other words, those countries that have nuclear weapons need to willingly show their commitment to ending nuclear weapons throughout the world, and they need to show this commitment by leading by example and starting to reduce and diminish their stockpiles of nuclear weapons." Now, at the beginning of 2020, only 9 countries possessed nuclear weapons. And on July 7th, 2017, 122 countries voted to adopt the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which seeks to legally ban nuclear weapons in the same way that chemical and biological weapons have been banned. Since then, 53 countries have signed this treaty. By signing the treaty, they agree to never develop, test, produce, manufacture, otherwise acquire, possess, or stockpile nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices. They also vow to not assist other countries with such efforts, nor will they allow any stationing, installation, or deployment of any nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices in its territory or at any place under its jurisdiction or control. Let's take another mindful pause. As your body and mind settles and you rest in inner peace, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Notice what, if any, response your inner wisdom offers to the questions. And remember, your answers may arise in ways other than words. What does the global beloved community that your heart wishes to see expressed in the world look like? In this community, how do people treat each other? Relate to each other? Support and help one another? How do people treat domestic animals, wildlife, and the environment? In this global beloved community that your heart wishes to see in the world, does war exist? In this community, this global community, do nuclear weapons exist? Building and maintaining nuclear weapons costs the US trillions of dollars and countless hours of labor. Imagine all of the good that could be done if that money, labor, and time was reinvested elsewhere. How could these resources serve the creation of a global beloved community? And in what way do you feel called to be a peacemaker? How can you promote peace in your relationships to your own thoughts, feelings, sensations, and body? How can you promote peace in your relationships with friends, family members, neighbors, colleagues, strangers, and so-called enemies? How can you promote peace in your work, your service, and volunteering? How can you promote peace in who you vote for and what you support? How can you promote peace in all of the activities that you engage in? Gently hear your heart's answers to these questions, and let these answers inform you on how you live and how you move in the world. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., an outspoken opponent of war and nuclear weapons, once said, "What will be the ultimate value of having established social justice in a context where all people, Negro and white, are merely free to face destruction by strontium-90 or atomic war?" I think that's pretty, those are pretty powerful words. You know, we're all doing the best we can to create a loving world. And really, we're just on the, we're not that far away, not very, far away from a total nuclear annihilation, given the weapons that have been built up and their placement around the world, even if it's a mistake. And I know with the bombing in Beirut that we saw today, which looked like a mushroom cloud to me, and the current reports are that it was, from what I've heard, and a lot of rumors happen when things like this first happen, but it sounds like it was an accidental explosion caused by confiscated weapons that they received. And so even when we're not in a conflict situation, these things can pose a great deal of risk to us. So I hope this has just been a time for you to sort of pause and reflect on war and peace and beloved community and nuclear weapons, and just sort of listen to your own conscience as to where you stand on these. And if you feel so moved, I invite you all to pray every day this week for world peace and for global nuclear disarmament. I think prayer is a very powerful form of healing in the world. So that's one thing we can do. And then also on Thursday, August 6th at 7 p.m. Central Time, a group called Campaign Nonviolence will be holding a 1-hour online vigil for Hiroshima and Nagasaki that I invite all of you who are interested to attend. And you can learn more about the vigil and watch it live from the web page, which is https://PACEEBENE, which is pachebene.org/Hiroshima Day 2020. And I sent that link out to you in an email, excuse me. And if this is posted online, we'll have the link in the transcript of this talk. So if any of you are interested, I invite you to join us with that. And I'm just going to close with a prayer for peace created by the Christian Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. And all who are listening, please direct this prayer to the all-loving, all-merciful, higher power of your understanding. They use the word God, but feel free to substitute it with any other word that you so choose. That makes more sense for you in whatever tradition you come from. You haven't, oh, excuse me, I'll start again. You have given us life, intelligence, and the beauty of creation, O God. Your good gifts were given so we might be stewards of all that is alive. In our arrogance, we have unleashed fearful forces that destroy. We have brought down fierce fire from the sky. Your children and creatures have been burned, your gentle green earth scorched. Fear rules now, not love. We have given in to evils lesser and greater. In your mercy, help us turn from destruction, from bombs and barricades. Lead us to life again, to affirmation of all goodness, to international disarmament, and to transform the nuclear nightmare into the peace you have proposed. Hear our prayer, O God, and guide us in your ways. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I send you all peace and love and health. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording.